The wonderfully reworded Gumball Season 2 is here, and a vast majority of the new episodes are really good, or even in my opinion, some of the best episodes of Gumball ever. But with that, the season also has a few episodes that are pretty whatever, or also, in my opinion, possibly some of the worst Gumball episodes ever. And so in this video, I'll be discussing all of the episodes that I have deemed to be the worst and the best of the season, and giving my overall reasoning on why those episodes are either good or bad. So consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel, and now let's begin. Beginning with the worst episodes of the wonderfully reworded Gumball Season 2. Season 2, Episode 8, The Diary. Gumball and Darwin find a diary in which they believe to be Claire's, where she reveals that her best friend Wilson told her that he loves her, but Claire straight up friendzones him, and from then on, Wilson and her basically quit talking as Wilson completely avoids her. Claire felt bad, but also had a boyfriend already, so didn't really know what to do about it, and then sees Wilson helping Anton. She quickly realizes the mistake she made by not being with them, and more or less just instantly falls in love with them. And so she confronts Wilson, but he then says that he's leaving, but will wait for her at the bus stop if she changes her mind. But then as the diary ends, Gumball and Darwin look out the window where they see Wilson and not Claire. But as Darwin asks where Claire is, Claire then reveals that the diary is not hers, and we then find out that the diary is actually none other than Leslie's. And hearing this, Gumball and Darwin just explode and are transported to the room of a god of over-the-top reactions who offers them the key to all universal knowledge, and they of course just do not care whatsoever, which was pretty funny. But Darwin then reveals to Wilson that Leslie wants him, and as Wilson confronts Leslie in the bathroom, we just hear the two hugging and kissing whilst Gumball and Darwin are just so happy. This episode was alright. It didn't focus on the most interesting characters, so that kind of automatically makes it worse than the others, I guess. But that isn't to say it's necessarily a bad episode either. I'm pretty sure this is the first bit of LGBTQ representation ever in the show, so that's nice to see at least. Season 2, Episode 11, The Survivalist. Nicole and Anais leave Richard to be a responsible parent and make sure Gumball and Darwin don't do anything crazy, but of course as soon as they leave, Gumball asks Richard if him and Darwin can get naked and go survive outside, and of course Richard just instantly says yes, as he has no idea what responsibility is, as we then get a whole episode of Gumball and Darwin and eventually Richard surviving outside naked, as they all just adapt and accept living outside as their lives get completely and fully taken by these animals. This episode is weird to say the least, and probably the most random plot in probably the entire series if I'm being honest. I didn't really enjoy it, and it's one of my least favorite episodes of the season easily. Season 2, Episode 12, The Labels. Mr. Small reveals that he's getting fired before Miss Simeon says that Miss Combs is actually behind this, and that she fired all of the executive staff, and hearing this, Gumball and Darwin go to talk to Principal Brown, but are then confronted by Miss Combs, who refers to them as the troublemakers, and then puts a literal label on both of them, Darwin being vulnerable and Gumball being labeled as bad. And of course, Gumball takes this in a different way than what she meant, but Darwin then says that kids shouldn't be labeled by others as it ends up defining them when they're older, as they then go to see the other kids in their school to ask for help, and we see that they've all been labeled as well and are acting like their labels because of it, just believing that that's what they are now because of what an adult told them they are. They end up dealing with this by Gumball just taking everybody's label and becoming super powerful, more or less, just kind of saying that you should be free to be what you want, or be free to be as many things as you want to be, and shouldn't be labeled to just one thing. But Gumball then labels Miss Combs as fired, as she's then sent flying, and the episode ends. This episode conveys such a deep message that some may or may not agree with, and definitely isn't true in all cases, but a lot of kids for sure do get boxed in or forced to be a label because of what someone else said or did to make them believe they are. I think they honestly did the best that they could to touch on a subject like this, honestly. Season 2, Episode 18, The Pants. Banana Joe randomly decides that he wants to wear pants, and Gumball is just not having it whatsoever, and so tries to get him to take them off, saying that he's making a fashion statement that will cause a butterfly effect on the other students. And of course it ends up doing exactly this, and ends up getting in the way and changing everybody's lives, and so they all have a meeting to figure out just how to get Banana Joe to take them off, as we then see them all come to school naked, which of course makes Banana Joe just feel out of place, and the overall need to fit in, causing him to go back to being his pantsless self. This episode was really weird. It was just a really weird way to cover the topic of the butterfly effect. Like, it's kind of funny at moments, but yeah, just not the best plot or story. But now moving on to the best episodes of the wonderfully rewarded Gumball Season 2. Season 2, Episode 5, The Synthesis. It's career day at Elmore Junior High, and Nicole comes and absolutely embarrasses Anais with a really cringy rap. And then Gumball and Darwin also tell Nicole that they avoid her in school, calling themselves shinobis as Darwin uses a jutsu, and Gumball just can't, so he just Naruto runs away, which was pretty funny. But hearing this, Nicole goes to cry in the bathroom, but we then see that Yuki is actually dealing with the same thing as her, trying to be cool but just embarrassing Masami in doing so. And because of this, of course, they instantly start trying to one-up one another, bringing back the anime style once again. But eventually they realize since they're in the same boat, they need to work together to show their kids just how cool or just how much power they have. As we then get even more Nicole and Yuki childhood lore, learning that they learned more or less an ultimate team-up power called the Synthesis, which they then do and literally fuse. I love the amount of Dragon Ball references in this episode, and they continue to do them as Masami and Anais fuse as well. Gumball and Darwin, of course, attempt to do so, but fail sadly. Nonetheless, we then get this just actually awesome Dragon Ball style fight between them in the sky and space, before Nicole and Yuki blast their kids with a spirit bomb. But Anais and Masami basically tell them that they're not acting like their mothers, but like theirs. As we get yet another flashback of the two, of course, having the same childhood, both scolded by their parents for everything and forced to be the best at everything. And this causes Nicole and Yuki to come to their senses and save their daughters from quite literally falling to their deaths, as they then all share a pretty wholesome moment together. But they then all fuse together as Miss Simeon shows up, but of course Miss Simeon just absolutely destroys them, as she's been alive for like a billion years. Gumball and Darwin then also try to fuse once again, but just get stuck inside of each other's heads, which was pretty expected, honestly. But I really wish we did get to see them fuse. But this episode wasn't really about them though, and was way more about the mother and daughter's relationship, so having them be sidelined but still somewhat be involved with jokes like this honestly works. Nonetheless, this is easily one of my favorite episodes from this season, and honestly of all of Gumball in general. Season 2, Episode 6, The Cheatmiss. This episode is actually just so perfect to have released and to watch during the holiday season, but also is just a really good episode of Gumball in general, and is also honestly, in my opinion at least, easily better than the first Christmas special they did in the original series. The episode begins with Gumball and Darwin dressed up in Christmas sweaters, looking festive and adorable, but the boys then go into Nicole's room thinking that she had decorated her room, but in reality she is just working her ass off. But they then head into town, Darwin even saying happy holidays to Penny's dad, but then just getting coffee dumped on him and Gumball for it, which was actually just so sad. And it gets even sadder as they then realize quickly that all of the adults of Elmore are mad busy with work and not really focused on celebrating Christmas whatsoever. As we even see Yuki on call with Masami saying she won't even be home for Christmas as she'll be busy working. But Richard then says that he's pretending to be Nicole so she can work 2 jobs just so she can get them the stuff that they want for Christmas, making it seem like the spirit of Christmas is still at least somewhat alive. But then as Gumball and Darwin go to look at the Christmas tree in the mall, the construction workers are already taking it down, and as Gumball asks one of them what he's doing, he just straight up says that Christmas is canceled this year as everything is too expensive. And then as the two deflate because of the sad news, he blows them back up and then charges them $50 for it, saying that's inflation. And Darwin then of course says that Christmas isn't just about cheap material goods, and from here on in the episode, the two decide that they're gonna attempt to save Christmas or bring back the Christmas spirit and show that it truly isn't just about gifts, which is such a good wholesome message that of course plenty of movies have focused on, but having it be a lesson that Gumball and Darwin try to teach the adults of Elmore adds such a fun spin to it. I also just love when the show touches on real life deep topics, and this is one honestly perfect for them to cover. They kind of touch on the topic of inflation with the prices of fast food and healthy foods and the burger, but bringing it back up in this way honestly also I feel helps with the continuity of the show, but also just continues to make Elmore and its citizens feel way more relatable and realistic. But nonetheless, Gumball and Darwin then visit the Awesome Store, but of course everything he has to sell is overpriced as well, and so they decide to just jack his whole whip, as we then get a montage of them driving through town using different items from the Awesome Store. But of course, instead of bringing back Christmas, it just kind of makes things worse. But as the kid then comes up to them saying that there's not much joy left in his his life due to his illness, and that the holidays are the only thing that brings any light to the dark reality of his life. They just start crying and send him flying, which was actually hilarious. But Gumball then continues to cry, saying that he doesn't know what to do, thinking that Santa wasn't coming. But Darwin then says this. And so they then go into people's houses delivering presents, which of course eventually leads them to being chased by the cops. And so they start throwing things from the awesome store at him, which transforms his car into a bunch of different things, as well as my goat, Jake the dog from Adventure Time. It was so cool to see a cameo of him here, especially after the sincere lack of Jake content as of late, with him basically not appearing whatsoever in Fiona and Cake Season 2. But anyways, Darwin then throws a snow globe at the ground, which then causes snow to instantly appear everywhere, but it then causes the van to spin out, and as they're surrounded by the police and Gumball and Darwin get handcuffed, Sarah actually comes up to them and says that they were just trying to save the holidays, which then also inspires Hector and the awesome store driver to speak up as well. And of course, as he says that he works 24/7 just to break even, all of the adults of course look over as they're all going through the same thing, but everyone then actually gives the awesome store driver all of the items they got from him back, which makes him start crying, which of course makes everyone, and mainly all of the adults here, finally realize the true meaning of Christmas. It's about the spirit of Christmas itself. Snow, the overall vibes, the joy on people's faces, giving instead of receiving, and being happy with whatever you get and not expecting your parents to get you something expensive, and that they don't have to work so much to get you that crazy present. You should truly be happy with whatever. A valuable lesson for the town of Elmore finally learned, but then of course Santa comes in and tries to teach them the exact lesson we just spent the entire episode covering, and so Gumball literally just tells him that to his face, and then he just gives up and says,
okay, anyone want a picture with me for $10?
I feel like this is kind of calling out to the people that dress up as Santa for money. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it works in the context of this episode as a pretty good joke. Once again, I love this episode, and it's honestly one of my favorites of the new season, and honestly maybe of all of Gumball. Season 2, Episode 7, The Score. Gumball and Darwin accidentally make Ocho so mad that he blows up the bus, and so they decide that they're gonna help him learn how to deal with his anger. They try getting him to let out all of his anger through a bunch of different means, but as nothing works, Ocho ends up opening up to them, saying that they don't get what his life is like, and that his life is like a video game, in which we see is quite literally an actual video game that Gumball, Darwin, and Ocho play, revealing that Ocho actually has just an insane backstory, in which enemies attacked the king or his father and chased him off to never be seen again, resulting in the queen, his mother, to escape with him to Earth. And through the game itself being extremely difficult, we get even more details about Ocho's life, seeing his struggles and responsibilities that he shouldn't have to have yet being a kid, all because of his mom working and his dad just not being around. But as the game or his life is always seemingly going to be difficult no matter what, Gumball and Darwin say that they'll help Ocho have fun with it instead of trying to beat it, in which results in them actually defeating a level and Ocho finally being happy, ending the episode with Gumball and Darwin now understanding Ocho and even calling him a friend, which was really wholesome. But Gumball and Darwin then of course realizing just how unfair life is after they leave, just start shooting electricity out of their ass, which was pretty funny, using video games as a metaphor to tell Ocho's traumatic story and create a bond with Gumball and Darwin, and doing so was just so good. I absolutely love the writing of this episode and the visuals as well. Season 2, Episode 20, The Rewrite. The episode begins with Gumball and Darwin, or more so Gumball, actually just fully acknowledging the fact that their world or just lives are just very weird, kind of breaking the fourth wall and becoming full on meta, realizing that they've been the same age for years, their voices have been replaced, their animation styles have changed, and the fact that Rob was literally turning everyone into real humans. And as Darwin asks what their old nemesis is up to these days, we finally see Rob once again, who is now working for the owner of the Awesome Store, which we actually did see in another episode prior in this season, being the episode The Cheatmiss, where we see the owner is actually a pretty nice guy, making what they reveal next honestly hit way more. The Awesome Store driver tells Rob that Gumball and Darwin are about to find the void plot hole that he left when he apparently saved him, as we then actually get to see the exact moment literally directly after the events of the Inquisition, which was actually really cool to see. But as Gumball and Darwin, I guess, acknowledging the plot hole would cause Elmore to fall into the void, Rob and the awesome store driver now take fate into their own hands and rewrite the story, showing that the wonderfully weird world of Gumball and possibly all of the amazing world of Gumball is just a story written by the awesome store driver on a script that makes whatever he writes become reality, which is genuinely just insane. I didn't expect him to be that involved to the story's narrative, but he's quite literally the creator. But nonetheless, they then try to stop Gumball and Darwin from making it to school where the plot hole resides through putting a bunch of different nonsensical obstacles in their way that almost instantly make them realize that someone is trying to stop them from finding something. Rob then recalls the moment where they told him that he could be their mortal enemy, as well as the events of the remote, where he said he never wanted to be a villain, but now realizes that he kind of has to be in order to save them. And so once Gumball and Darwin finally do make it to the school, Rob then finally reunites with the two, taking the role of the villain, at least in their eyes, yet again, in which we also just get some of the most amazing animation of the school being cut up and the void just surrounding them with glitches everywhere, as Gumball then jumps in to kill Rob with an axe. This actually felt unreal when watching it for the first time, but nonetheless, we then cut back to the awesome store driver, who sees that the script that Rob wrote got a bunch of SMP notes for being too violent and for Rob's demise being too sad. And so what Rob expected to happen here and what he truly thought would happen here was his death. I don't know if killing Rob would have stopped them from finding the void, but that would have actually been the most insane thing to happen in this show ever if Gumball actually did just decapitate Rob with an axe. But nonetheless, Rob then falls into the void once again, and everything goes back to normal for Gumball and Darwin, as they then just laugh it off, which was a little strange to be honest. But nonetheless, we then go back to Rob falling in the void, who's then once again saved by the awesome store owner, who then actually retires and gives his job to Rob, saying that they're gonna need someone to protect the people of Elmore when they eventually do get pulled from the air. And as Rob asks what he should do when the void does come back, he says he just needs to press this button, which he then presses and sends Rob away, assumingly back to Elmore, as he then also leaves and retires, ending the season with whatever happens next kind of all up to Rob. So I guess the void serves as this thing that will inevitably come when Gumball ends, and I'm assuming that we'll get to see how that will play out when the series is over, or maybe in the Gumball movie, which of course I do hope we get. I wonder if every time he presses that button it kind of resets things so they can keep having however many seasons they want before the end does come. That would have to be my guess at least. Nonetheless, this episode was truly so good and honestly just blew my expectations of how they would handle the subject of the void and Rob and the cliffhanger out of the park. I genuinely think that this was the best way they could have possibly handled it. But nonetheless, that's going to be the end of the video, so please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next video whenever that is.